Hi, everyone, and welcome back. Today, we're going to be taking a deep dive into the male perspective on attraction. And we're going to be doing that with this book called How to Get a Girlfriend, even if she's not interested in you at first.
Right.
Now, before anyone gets any ideas,
Yeah.
this deep dive isn't about, manipulation or sneaky tactics.
Exactly.
It's about understanding the dynamics of attraction, especially from a woman's point of view, and avoiding some of those common pitfalls that a lot of guys fall into.
Yeah, for sure.
The book says there are 3 major mistakes men often make, and understanding these could really be a game changer.
Yeah, it's like getting a behind-the-scenes look at how attraction actually works.
Yeah.
You know, going beyond just those basic surface-level dating tips.
For sure, for sure.
Like, we're going to be looking at the evolution of behavior
Interesting.
and, even the subconscious factors that influence our choices.
Okay, so let's jump right in. The book really emphasizes this fundamental difference between how men and women experience attraction. You've probably heard of the term slow burn, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Well, this book really dives deep into what that means for women.
It really challenges that common misconception that attraction is just instant for everyone,
Yeah.
The book argues that for men, it often is.
Okay.
You see someone you're attracted to and bam, you're interested. But for women,
It's a process.
yeah, it's way more gradual.
So instead of instant fireworks, it's
Right.
more like building a slow and steady fire.
Exactly.
Okay.
Think about it from an evolutionary perspective.
Okay.
For women, choosing a mate has historically been, it's been a higher stakes decision.
Right.
One that could have huge implications for their safety and the survival of their offspring,
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
So they're kind of wired to be more cautious
Yeah.
and discerning.
Right. So it's not about playing hard to get.
Yeah.
It's more about
It's about gathering information and assessing compatibility on multiple levels.
I see.
And this is where a lot of men, this is where they stumble. They misinterpret a woman's initial hesitation
Right.
or cautiousness as a lack of interest.
Yeah, I can definitely see that happening.
Yeah.
But knowing this now, how can men approach building attraction in a way that respects this slow burn process?
Right.
The book emphasizes spending quality time together
Yes.
in person.
That's huge.
And that's where they introduce this concept of the trust bank.
It's not a literal bank, of course,
Right.
but it's a metaphor for how to build emotional capital in a relationship.
Okay.
Every interaction, every conversation, every shared experience, it's like a deposit into this trust bank.
So it's about creating that sense of familiarity and security.
Yes, exactly.
Over time.
Right.
So instead of going in for a big investment up front, you're making smaller but consistent deposits.
Exactly. And that consistency is key. I mean, think about it. Would you trust someone who just suddenly showered you with gifts and promises?
Not really.
Or someone who, demonstrated their trustworthiness
Yeah.
through consistent actions over time?
I definitely go with the consistent actions.
Right.
Okay, so how do we make those deposits? What
Yeah.
kind of actions really count?
Well, the book highlights, a lot of those simple
Right.
but powerful gestures. Showing up on time.
Yeah.
Remembering details she shared, being a good listener,
Yeah.
offering genuine compliments,
So it's not about those grand gestures.
Yeah,
It's more about
It's about being present,
yeah.
attentive
Okay.
in those everyday moments,
Okay.
and respecting her boundaries and allowing her to kind of set the pace.
That brings us to the first big mistake that the book outlines, and it's seeking rapport too hard.
Ooh, yeah.
And I think we've all been there, right?
Oh, sure.
You want someone to like you so badly that you just end up trying too hard.
And that neediness,
Mhm.
that desperation for approval, it's a huge turnoff.
Yeah.
It really is.
Because it just signals insecurity.
Right.
Which, from an evolutionary perspective,
Yeah.
it doesn't exactly scream desirable mate, does it?
Not really, no.
But confidence, on the other hand, is a very attractive trait.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
It signals strength, resourcefulness, social intelligence.
Yeah, you got it.
But how can we convey confidence without coming across as arrogant or cocky? The book uses this example of a high-value man.
Right.
What does that even mean?
So a high-value man, it's not about material possessions or social status or anything like that.
Right.
It's about having a strong sense of self-worth, and not needing external validation to feel good about yourself.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's about being comfortable in your own skin.
So it's about owning your strengths and weaknesses, Having your own passions and interests.
For sure.
And not being afraid to express your own opinions, even if they differ from hers.
Yes, because ultimately,
Yeah.
genuine connection,
Yeah.
it comes from authenticity, you know?
Yeah.
Not from pretending to be someone you're not.
It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So seeking rapport too hard is basically the opposite of that.
Right.
It's putting all your energy into getting her approval instead of just like focusing on building a genuine connection.
And that shift in focus
Aye.
can make all the difference.
Okay, so let's move on to the second mistake men often make.
Okay.
And this one might surprise you.
All right.
It's avoiding physical contact.
Now, before we get into this,
Yeah.
it's crucial to emphasize that we're talking about appropriate touch. Okay?
Yes, of course. Consent and respect are super important.
Absolutely. Always respecting boundaries and making sure she's comfortable.
But the book is arguing that avoiding touch altogether can actually hinder the development of attraction.
Yeah, this is where things get really interesting.
Okay.
Because from like a biological perspective,
Yeah.
touch is a powerful form of communication.
Right.
It releases oxytocin,
Mm-hmm.
which is often called the cuddle hormone.
Ah.
And this plays a key role in bonding and trust.
So appropriate touch can help build that trust bank we were talking about.
Exactly.
Right.
Like think back to the analogy
Yeah.
of making deposits.
Yeah.
So a light touch on the arm during a conversation,
Right.
a playful nudge, a hug goodbye.
Yeah.
These are all ways of making small but significant deposits
I see.
into that trust bank.
It's almost like saying, like on a subconscious level, I'm comfortable with you, I trust you, and I'm open to connection.
Exactly. But the key is gradual escalation.
Right.
You wouldn't just walk up to someone you barely know and hug them. Right?
Definitely not.
So it's about starting small,
Okay.
gauging her comfort level,
Yeah.
and gradually building up to more meaningful touch over time.
Okay, so that's where a lot of guys get stuck, right?
Yeah, a lot of guys are afraid of misinterpreting signals or, coming across as creepy or overstepping boundaries.
I get that. That's totally understandable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The book emphasizes that avoiding touch completely can send the wrong signal.
Uh-huh.
Like, you seem distant
Right.
or uninterested.
Okay.
And it can make it really awkward
Yeah.
to transition to more intimate touch later on.
Right, because if she's not used to any physical contact from you,
Exactly.
then a sudden kiss can just feel like,
Weird.
yeah, weird and out of place.
Exactly.
Okay, so the takeaway here is to be mindful and intentional with your touch. Always respect her boundaries,
Yes.
but don't be afraid to incorporate it into your interaction.
It's about finding that balance between being respectful
Yeah.
and showing her that you're comfortable with physical closeness.
Okay, so we've covered two major mistakes that men often make, seeking rapport too hard and avoiding physical contact.
Right.
Now let's talk about the third one, which is all about
Ooh, flirting.
flirting.
The art of playful connection, the spark that ignites romance.
But even this seemingly lighthearted behavior can trip people up.
Oh yeah, for sure.
The book positions flirting as this crucial element
Yes.
in moving beyond the friend zone.
That's right.
It's about creating this dynamic that's fun and engaging and hints at something more.
More than just friends.
Yeah,
Right.
than just friendship, exactly.
And this is where a lot of people get stuck.
Mm-hmm.
They either avoid it altogether
Mm-hmm.
or they go about it in a way that's like awkward
Yeah.
or just off-putting.
Okay, so what does good flirting actually look like?
Right.
The book suggests it doesn't have to be complicated or like over the top.
Mm-hmm.
It's about being playful, teasing a little, and offering specific, unexpected compliments.
Like, for example, instead of just saying, you look beautiful,
Right.
which is generic,
Yeah.
try something like, that dress really brings out the color of your eyes.
Okay.
Or, I love your sense of humor. You always know how to make me laugh.
I like that because it shows you're paying attention to her
Yeah.
as an individual,
Got it.
not just her appearance.
Exactly.
The book also suggests using playful teasing as a way to flirt.
Oh, yeah.
So, like, for example, if she mentions loving a certain band, you could jokingly say,
Mm-hmm.
wow, I never pictured you as a fan of such cheesy music.
Exactly.
It's lighthearted,
Yeah.
and it keeps things interesting.
And it creates a bit of playful tension.
Right.
That back and forth banter.
Yeah.
That keeps her guessing
Uh-huh.
and builds excitement.
So flirting, when done right, is like adding fuel to the fire
Yes.
of attraction.
It signals you're interested on a romantic level, not just as a friend.
All right, so we've covered a lot of ground here today. We've talked about the slow burn nature of female attraction, the importance of building trust through consistent actions and appropriate touch, and we've explored how flirting can be a really powerful tool for signaling romantic interest. But this is just the beginning of our deep dive.
Right. In part 2, we'll be talking about this idea of the tipping point.
Ooh, exciting.
That magical moment
Yeah.
when a woman's interest shifts from casual to romantic.
We'll explore the signs to look for, the common pitfalls to avoid, and the strategies for navigating that crucial transition.
Sounds good.
Stay tuned. Welcome back to our deep dive. Last time, we were talking about this idea of a tipping point.
Right.
That moment when a woman's interest shifts from just friendly to something more romantic.
Exactly.
But how do we actually recognize that shift in real life? What are some of the signs?
Well, it's not always going to be super obvious.
Right.
It's more about those subtle cues and changes in her behavior.
So it's like we have to become, like, attraction detectives.
Kind of. You're looking for clues that suggest her perception of you is changing.
Okay, so what are some of those clues?
Well, we talk about things like if she's initiating contact more.
Yeah.
Or asking thoughtful questions.
Right.
But let's dig a little deeper. Have you ever noticed how, like, a woman's eyes light up when she's really into someone?
Yeah, I think I've seen that.
It's like a spark.
Yeah, a spark of connection.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you can see it in her body language, too.
Oh, okay.
She might start subconsciously mirroring your movements.
Interesting.
Or leaning in when you're talking.
Correct.
Or just finding excuses to be closer to you.
So it's not just what she's saying, it's how she's acting.
Exactly.
And remember that trust bank analogy we talked about?
Oh, yeah.
I feel like the tipping point is where those deposits we've been making really start to pay off.
Totally. Like the interactions just become more comfortable and natural.
Okay.
The conversations flow more easily.
Yeah.
There's more laughter. You just genuinely enjoy being around each other.
So it's like going from someone you just met to someone you actually like hanging out with.
Exactly. And that enjoyment can lead to her wanting more connection.
Okay.
She might start suggesting things you could do together.
Right.
Or invite you to hang out with her friends. Or even confide in you about personal stuff.
Like she's creating those opportunities to get closer.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But it's important to remember
Yeah.
that the tipping point isn't just about her. It's about you, too.
Right.
You're also figuring out if you want to take things further.
So we got to be honest with ourselves about our own feelings.
Absolutely. Don't get caught up in the excitement if you're not really feeling it.
Yeah, that's good advice.
But if you are feeling it,
Yeah.
and you sense she is too, then the tipping point is like a green light.
Okay, but not a finish line.
No, it's more like a signal to proceed with caution.
Gotcha. So how do we navigate that, like, without messing things up?
Well, this is where a lot of guys make a big mistake.
Uh-oh.
They think the tipping point means it's time to get more assertive, you know?
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Like more alpha or even pushy.
Yeah, like all those mistakes we talked about before.
Exactly. Seeking rapport too hard, being too aggressive with touch.
Right, coming on too strong.
Because reaching the tipping point doesn't mean she's ready to jump into a relationship.
Okay.
It means the door's open, but she's still in control of the pace.
So we got to respect her timeline.
Absolutely.
But how do we do that without ending up in the friend zone?
Good question. The book says clear communication is key.
Makes sense.
So while it's important not to rush things,
Yeah.
it's also important to be honest about your intentions.
So it's about finding that balance.
Yeah, that sweet spot between being respectful
Right.
and letting her know you're interested.
Okay, so what would that look like in practice?
Well, it could be something as simple as asking her on a real date,
Okay.
or telling her you enjoy spending time with her,
Right.
or even giving a compliment that hints at your romantic interest.
I see.
It's all about sending the right signals.
And being aware of the signal she's sending back.
Exactly. It's a two-way street.
This has been really eye-opening. So to recap, the tipping point is this culmination of effort where her feelings start to shift. But it's not the end, it's just a transition.
And it takes patience and observation.
And even when you sense you've reached it,
Right.
you got to keep nurturing that connection.
Exactly. Because building genuine attraction isn't about shortcuts or tricks.
Right.
It's about creating something real and lasting.
And that's what we all want, right?
Absolutely.
Well said. All right, we've covered the slow burn of female attraction, the 3 big mistakes, and now we've really delved into the tipping point. I'm excited to see what else we uncover.
Me too.
All right, so welcome back to our deep dive. We've been unpacking this book,
Yeah.
How to Get a Girlfriend, and we've covered a lot of ground.
Yeah.
The slow burn, the trust bank, those mistakes to avoid, that tipping point.
Right.
But now I kind of want to talk about the practical stuff.
Yeah.
How do we actually use all this in our own lives?
That's the big question, right?
Yeah.
Luckily, this book doesn't just stay theoretical.
Okay, good.
It really emphasizes that self-improvement
Mm-hmm.
is just as important as understanding attraction.
That makes sense. You can't expect to attract someone amazing
Right.
if you're not putting in the work yourself.
Exactly. But it can feel kind of overwhelming, you know.
It totally can. Where do we even start?
Start small.
Okay.
Think about one area where you genuinely want to grow.
Okay.
Maybe it's getting in better shape,
Right.
or learning a new skill,
Okay.
or finally starting that project you've been putting off.
I like that.
It's about finding what excites you, what makes you feel more confident.
So it's got to be something you actually enjoy.
For sure, because that inner confidence, that passion,
Yeah,
it shows.
it does.
And people are drawn to that.
Okay, I can see that.
Think about who are you more attracted to?
Mm-hmm.
Someone who's just blah,
Yeah,
or someone who's like lit up about life.
definitely the one who's lit up. That energy's kind of contagious.
Exactly. And that's what makes you stand out, you know?
So working on yourself is like step one.
Yeah, it's a good foundation.
But what about actually meeting people?
That's the next step, right?
Yeah, how do we create those opportunities?
Put yourself out there.
Easier said than done sometimes.
I know.
Yeah.
But it's not just about bars and clubs.
Right.
It's about finding activities where you can connect with people who share your interests.
Like what? Give me some examples.
Join a hiking group, take a cooking class,
Okay.
volunteer for something you care about,
Mm-hmm.
even just striking up a conversation at your local coffee shop.
Those are good low-pressure ideas.
And you never know who you'll meet.
Right.
Plus, you might discover something new you love.
That's true. Okay, but once you meet someone,
Yeah,
we've got to know how to talk to them.
communication is key.
Exactly. Any tips from the book?
Oh yeah, active listening.
Oh, I've heard that's important.
It's huge. It's not just waiting for your turn to speak.
Mm-hmm.
It's engaging with what she's saying.
Yeah.
Asking questions, showing you're interested.
So basically making her feel heard and understood.
Exactly. Plus, pay attention to those nonverbal cues.
Right.
Eye contact, body language, all that.
They can tell you a lot.
More than words sometimes.
Okay, that's for listening.
Mhm.
But what about when it's our turn to talk?
Right. How do we express our feelings?
Yeah, without freaking her out.
Find the balance between vulnerability and self-assurance.
Okay, what does that mean?
It means it's good to share, but don't come across as needy.
So open and honest,
Mm-hmm.
but not like desperate.
Exactly, because
Yeah.
genuine connection happens when both people feel safe.
Right. To just be themselves.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now let's get even more specific.
Okay.
You're on a date, things are going well, you're feeling that spark.
Mm-hmm.
What's the next move?
Ooh, yeah, what do we do?
Don't overthink it.
Okay.
No grand gestures, just focus on creating a fun experience.
So like suggesting something you'll both enjoy.
Exactly, something to get you both laughing or being adventurous.
I like that, building those positive memories.
It strengthens the bond.
But we can still subtly show we're interested romantically, right?
Mhm, of course. A thoughtful compliment, a night touch on the arm,
Oh.
holding her gaze for a second longer.
Little things like that.
They can make a big difference.
But what if she's not into it? What if she rejects us?
Rejection happens.
It does.
It's part of life.
Yeah, but it sucks.
It does, but it doesn't mean you're not worthy.
Right.
It just means you weren't the right fit
Okay.
at that time.
So don't take it personally.
Exactly. Use it as a learning experience.
Okay, so even rejection can be a good thing.
In a way, yeah.
It helps us figure out what we want.
And who we're truly compatible with.
Wow, this has been eye-opening. What's the biggest thing you've learned from this deep dive?
For me, it's all about being authentic
Yeah.
and self-aware.
Hmm.
Attraction isn't about tricks or pretending.
It's about being real.
Exactly. Be yourself, work on yourself,
Yeah.
and let your genuine self shine.
And be patient. Attraction takes time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, this has been an awesome deep dive.
It has.
We've learned so much about attraction from a male perspective, debunked some myths, and got some great practical advice.
Hopefully our listeners feel equipped to go out there and build those meaningful connections.
That's the goal. So to everyone listening, keep exploring, keep learning,
Yeah.
and most importantly, keep those conversations flowing.